connected consumer.
Hello, connected consumers. My name is Rosie Sarah, and I'm one of the hosts of Parks Associates podcast, The Connected Consumer. This podcast is all about Parks Associates' data-driven market insights on emerging consumer technology products and services, featuring our talented analyst team and industry leaders bringing in new and innovative products to market. In this podcast, you'll get an inside look at the latest industry trends focused on the connected consumer, home automation and security, energy management, connected health and independent living, as well as digital content and video services. So today, we're going to be tuning into a special roundtable session sponsored by Alarm.com from our Connections Conference series. If you're interested in learning more or attending our Connections Conference, please visit www.connectionsus.com if you are interested in anything about the smart home market, home security, and any new emerging consumer technology services for the home. Now, let's tune into the special roundtable session sponsored by Alarm.com.
We're going to be talking about strategies that integrate solar, security, and smart home, and how this combination can lower attrition, deliver energy savings, and create major customer stickiness. So I've got an awesome group from the industry who are going to join me in just a few minutes, but first I want to highlight some of Parks Associates' data. I want to make sure we know what we're all talking about. Solar is the focus of this conversation, but it's part of a broader category called distributed energy resources. And this includes any device or system that can be controlled by a utility. Effectively, these assets can help understand how energy is being consumed in real time and also creates a two-way relationship with energy in the future when you consider storage solutions being also attached. Parks Associates research shows that solar adoption is now at about 7% of internet households in the U.S. This is research from our survey work of 10,000 internet households. And for context, 1% of internet households is a little more than 1 million households. So 7% equals about 7 million homes that have solar panels. This is out of 112 or 114 million households in the U.S. with internet. Lots and lots of opportunity for growth here. And where consumers are buying these products is really split, meaning it's any of these companies' opportunities to introduce and sell this next generation of solutions in the home. The security industry is in a prime position given the other services they sell and offer to consumers. Also, the ability to integrate a system together between security and energy is part of really what we've been talking about for decades. This vision of leveraging automation for whole home controls and experience. And all of this is another step to that end. Generally, though, we see some good drivers in place for the growth of energy solutions. Certainly lots of attention in the area in general for consumers being environmentally conscious, a lot of investments coming from the government, and overall general trends towards more reliance on technology and consumer expectations around what it can do for them in their home environment. At the same time, we also see barriers as well, and the cost of some of these solutions will be a big barrier, but the biggest barrier right now with smart home devices in general is not understanding the value proposition. So if consumers don't understand the value proposition, no matter what the price, they're not going to buy that product if they don't think it has value. The housing market also is going to play a big role for solar installation as well as security services, as moving is one of the biggest triggers for buying a service or switching services. So we're going to see a lot of changes, I think, in the next few years as the housing market cools off. And finally, I want to mention the segment of households who own these products. The people who own security systems also own solar panels. This is a group that understands the value of a system, the benefits of the service, and the professional services that come along with them. Given the expense of solar panels in the $20,000 to $30,000 range or more, including storage, it's really important to approach a segment who already understands technology and the value and understand their perception so you can extend it further to more mass market play. So now, with that being said, I'd like to bring in our amazing group of speakers today. We're going to talk about the benefits of smart home and security solutions integrated with solar, how consumers are responding, and how the customer is getting approached, and finally, how quickly the market is going to grow. I would like to start off with Shawn Berry, Vice President of Strategic Sales for Alarm.com. Shawn, thank you so much for your support of this session. If you could, go ahead and introduce yourself and Alarm.com.
Great. Thanks for the invitation, Elizabeth. My name is Shawn Berry. I've been with Alarm.com for over 10 years. I oversee the strategic sales division where we create smart home programs in vertical markets, such as the builder sector, healthcare, and the topic for today is solar. So that's another area that we're seeing a tremendous amount of growth in. Essentially, we assist Alarm.com service providers by promoting new technology integrations in these verticals, and we also develop industry best practices while providing a seamless, rollout strategy for these new enterprise customers. So again, very excited about being here and looking forward to the conversation today.
Great. Thank you so much. Brendan, thanks for joining us. It's an honor to have you. If you would go ahead and share a little bit more about your role in Trinity Wiring and Security Solutions.
Sure. Thank you, Elizabeth, and good morning, everybody. Very excited to be part of this discussion today as we look at the solar opportunity in our industry. We've been in the security space for just about 20 years, and we really focus on delivering our customers value as new technology continues to be introduced in our space. We have a very loyal base of customers that depend on Trinity to meet their needs and to keep their homes safe and efficient. We love the opportunity as we have helped them in the energy management space with the introduction of smart thermostats and better managing energy costs there. We felt that solar is a very, very important part of what will be the continued expansion of a smart home as we grow forward, not only delivering additional value to our clients, but also helping to present the solution as a consultant in a professional way, maybe versus that of what has gone on up until this point. So very excited about the opportunity to continue that discussion here this morning.
That's great. And that consultative role is going to become really important as the environment gets more complex for consumers to understand, and they have so many choices as well. So thanks for joining us. Clint, we're so happy to have you join us today. We've been reading all sorts of things about Nomo. So go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself and the business.
You bet. Thank you, Elizabeth, and hello to everybody. Happy to be here and be a part of the conversation. So I'm the CEO and founder of Nomo Hub. We've been in business for close to 4 years. We are a software platform that connects sales organizations with solar installers across the country, and are really the easy button for companies that want to add solar to their product mix. And we can do that in a variety of ways, through either receiving leads from companies that just want to partner and hand off a customer and to have a trusted solar experience from sell to install, or companies that even want to get involved on the sales side. So happy to be here and appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason, it's nice to see you again. GreenMarbles plays a great role here, and so we're excited to have you join the conversation. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about GreenMarbles and some of the things you're working on.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here too. So GreenMarbles is a nationwide enterprise solutions integrator that helps customers, specifically utilities, multifamily, and home builders, deploy solutions in the smart home, solar, EV charging market. So we partner with best of breed established brands like Alarm.com, seeking sustainable, quick go-to-market solutions by tying together and expanding ecosystems of products and services. So I'm director of product development for GreenMarbles. So I am responsible for designing these solutions that we launch. And prior to this, I worked in the utility industry. Specifically, I was at Salt River Project for about 15 years. I designed customer programs. So I had the familiarity of working with hardware and software developers. So it's good to be in this space on the other side.
Great. Well, we're excited to have you here and bring in that perspective, and we'll probably be tapping into some of your experience there at SRP. Unfortunately, our Amon isn't able to join us to bring in that utility perspective, but Jason, I know you're going to be able to do that for us today. Let's go ahead and start about some of the general trends that we're seeing in the industry, especially in the selling process, the installation, and then where this crossover point is coming in with security. And Shawn, I want to start out with you. You guys have some amazing things going on at alarm.com. Can you catch us up to speed about what's been happening maybe over the past couple of years and how we've gotten to this point now where, you know, solar really is this great offering that it can be connected into the security solution mix?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I would say that kind of to summarize it, it's really broken down into three major changes over the last 2 to 3 years. So behind the scenes, we've been working on some new integrations that I'll talk about. We have a new solar program and some new partnerships. So on the integration side, you know, Alarm.com has really expanded deeper into our energy services segment. And, you know, as you know, from Alarm.com's 20 plus year history, we've expanded from security to home automation to video and into energy services, where we first connected with a smart thermostat with a lot of different providers, world-class brands. But, you know, over the last 2 to 3 years, we are now working with SolarEdge and Enphase, which are inverter companies that allow us to see the solar production of the home. So once that integration was complete, we expanded and officially launched our new solar program last June. And so that program includes Solar Academy training for our dealer network. We have free solar service plans for our service providers to extend to the customer base. And then we have the solar lead service that provides and manages really the whole solar customer experience on behalf of our service providers. And that really leads to the last component, which is new partnerships. Outside of SolarEdge and Enphase, we wanted to make sure that our service providers could provide world-class solar experience for their customer base at a very competitive price. So Alarm.com has integrated and formed a partnership with Nomo. And as Clint mentioned, you know, their software really does a fantastic job of managing all the moving pieces around solar and extends full transparency to our service providers with Net Promoter Score top of mind. So, you know, all these changes, these three major things are really bringing together two sectors in the space, both the security sector and the solar sector, and we're providing value for both industries. So a ton going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you know, if we look at what's going on with the security dealers, you know, everybody is looking to capture that next subscriber and the next buyer of really whatever solution they want, whether it's security, energy management, some of these home automation pieces that come along with that. So, Brendan, can you maybe share with us a little bit about how your business is shifting in terms of the consultative selling process, if this is the way you all have always been selling security solutions, or you know, you really are working hard to, of course, educate your own team and then be able to share that with consumers so they can make an educated decision.
Yeah, that's a great point. Elizabeth, we've always taken the approach of a consultative resource for our customers. We work with a lot of new home builders, and they value when we're an extension of their experience, of their process. So our approach from day one has always been consultative, and solar has become a real focus for us. And in working quite closely with our very trusted partner, Alarm, we see the opportunity to not just respond to today's market, i.e., you look at what's going on with Vivint and their energy company merge or acquisition, and then, of course, ADT. There's some natural steps in smart home security and energy management, energy generation coming together. Product manufacturers like JCI already have the technology built into their panel. So I think it was a natural step for Alarm to continue to fill the gap of what really belongs in a smart home solution. And the opportunity to deliver that value to our customers, we think is going to be very powerful as we grow forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to maybe just follow up on the new home segment. Can you share a little bit about the builder mindset as it relates specifically to adding solar and energy storage solutions?
Sure. The builders are at a position where obviously their marketplace has tightened up as interest rates have risen. So they're looking to differentiate themselves from other players in their space. And their customers are asking about the pre-wiring for EV charging. And then that's a natural stepping stone to battery storage, and then obviously generation of energy, i.e. solar. So they're looking to integrators and trusted partners like Trinity to help them through the understanding of how they should approach this space. And I think it's going to be very valuable for security integrators today and growing forward, that they familiarize themselves with this, and that they're there to support not just their clients, builders, as well as residents and commercial application. We're also a commercial integration company, and we're starting to see percentages of new construction that require X number of parking spots to be EV, to have EV chargers. Well, the next discussion is there availability or possibilities to add some solar panels to this equation so that we can be more efficient in the delivery of these services? So I think it's coming together, and I think as an integrator, it would be very wise for us to put on the thinking caps and get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And that EV play is really interesting there. The demand that might be coming as a result of EVs being on the road, and then consumers also, their mindset maybe shifting into storing energy and being able to use it differently. It does bring up all these federal incentives that have been flooding the market, and what this means both for home builders, for the security channel, for HVAC. And so, Clint, I want to come over to you here with this next question and see, what do you think is going to happen with all this money flooding the market, right? And we've seen this before back in 2012, 2013, lots and lots of money came into the market. And a lot of things ended up happening. A lot of things maybe didn't as well. So would love your perspective on that.
You bet. Yeah. Well, yeah, look, so that we can be clear on what incentives are out there. The IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act that was signed by Biden last fall, late August, mid-August, extended the tax credit. So extended the tax credit, the 30% federal tax credit for solar, and really a lot of energy efficient products kind of fall into that mix as well. But for solar, for purposes of this conversation, for the next 10 years. So we have a 10-year extension of a 30% tax credit on solar, which is massive. So what they expect is going to happen, they expect that extension is going to increase demand by 40% over the next 5 years. So what it does, the value proposition in solar, you're competing against, we're trying to beat the alternative in terms of savings to the customer. So the real goal is to create year one savings for a consumer. And so some of these markets where utility prices are really low, the cost of power is really low, these markets that have been unreachable in the past for solar to really make any financial sense are now becoming viable places for adoption. So I think what you'll see over the next few years is that a lot of these states where solar really hasn't gained any traction is going to gain a ton of traction. You kind of have a combination of federal incentives that are keeping the cost down to the consumer, the overall cost down, plus utility rates that are continuing to go up as demand. We'll get into EV and some of those things, hopefully, in this conversation a little bit later. But as demand continues to increase, so will utility prices. And then you've got efficiency in the solar installation and hardware component, side of things. And so less panels that are producing the same amount of power as more panels did back in the day. And so as panels become more efficient, as labor probably doesn't change much. In fact, it may go up a little bit over the next few years. But as product becomes more efficient, incentives exist, and utility rates with demand from EV go up, you're going to see a lot of adoption in the solar space. So the incentives will help dramatically stabilize some of the uncertainty around players wanting to get in the space from there was some uncertainty around when those incentives would stop. And so it provides some stability around people that want to get in the space from an investment standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly we'll see some new partnerships and even new offerings to consumers. For instance, Bank of America came out with a new finance offer to get the in-home charging. When you buy an EV, you can go ahead and finance that charging thing you're going to need in your garage to make sure your car operates well. So the market is changing even in what we're offering consumers so that they can have these products. It comes all around, right, to data and software and integration. And so, Jason, I want to come back over to you and see if you can share a little bit more about this value of data, the complexity of the integration, and what in the end ultimately are you trying to do? Is the focus wholly on the consumer having an understanding of energy consumption, energy savings? Maybe expand on all that for us.
Sure. So when I came over to GreenMarbles, one of the first things that they asked me to do was help provide a solution for utilities to offer solar to their customers. And I had to go back to my days when I worked at SRP, specifically in the solar group. And I used to see a lot of these contracts and leases that were just absolutely not in favor of the customer. And that's just the way it was a free market. They could sell it however they wanted. And so I thought, well, if I wanted to start my own solar company, how would I do this so that you could look at this through the utility lens to protect our customer, and so that you're really not selling solar as much as you're educating the customer and empowering them. And this comes, you're right, to data. The data is there, specifically as it relates to providing customers estimates on what a PV system, a solar system could do for them. So too often you see quotes that use incorrect energy costs. They're overinflated utility rate escalations. They don't use the right price plan that you're on when they're modeling a savings estimate. They don't take into account fixed costs and demand charges. It's just sort of a generic, utility average or a state average. And that's not good for the customer. And unfortunately, these customers don't know enough to ask the vendors these questions. And so we've really thought that it's important when we share this information with utilities that we can offer a solution partnering with Nomo to do this, because this data is available. Sometimes this data is available down to the hourly level. And these estimates should take into account net metering policies from the utility as well. I think we'll talk about net metering in a little bit, but net metering, it's all over the place. The kilowatt hours that are credited could be at the full retail rate. They could be at some wholesale rate or some value of solar rate, and everything in between.
Maybe sorry to interrupt you, but can you explain to us what net metering is in case some of our audience doesn't understand that term, may not be familiar with it?
I apologize. Sure. Net metering refers to the policy where you receive credit for excess generation that your solar puts back on the grid. So in an example, if you were generating 100 kilowatt hours from your PV system and you only needed 50 to power your house, 50 of those kilowatt hours would go back to the grid. And the amount credited that you get for those kilowatt hours depends on the utility. If it was the full retail, if the cost of electricity at that time was 15 cents, you'd be getting 15 cents back. Other utilities have different policies where you'll get 3 cents or some other number. So, and that's important in the system design of the house and of the customer. So this is all extremely important data, and that's why it needs to be utilized properly. It's there. You have to use it when you are working with these customers to protect their interests.
And Jason, maybe we can take a big step back and tell us why do utilities care so much? Why is this something that needs to happen? That the addition of solar and storage and assets in the home.
Well, we've talked to a lot of utilities, and one of their biggest concerns is that they have seen a lot of basically actors in the industry that aren't really looking out for the interests of the customer. They're more worried about, getting a higher margin for selling a PV system. It's more predatory practices. They aren't really fully forthcoming. And again, it goes back to, unfortunately, the customers just don't know enough to ask these questions. And so we want to design a program working with utilities to protect their customers where we give them all of this information. And again, it's not about selling, it's giving customers the right information so that they can make an informed decision on whether or not solar is right for them.
That's great. And it brings us back around a little bit onto the security providers. And, I love that the word trust already came up in the conversation. It's an important word in any relationship, whether business or personal. And so, Shawn, maybe you can share a little bit about this position that the security that you already hold, right, as a security solution provider, and why it makes sense. And I'd love to also hear Clint's view as well.
Yeah, so security providers are in a great situation because our companies collectively together have expanded the smart home over the years. So this is simply a natural progression anyway. Now, with Clint's offering with Nomo, it's providing the easy button, which makes it even easier to get into that space. But there's already a dialogue between the service providers and the customer, and they are a consultant. Brendan had mentioned that, earlier in the discussion, and that's the real value of Alarm.com and our dealers is really that relationship. Now, if we can expand on that and provide value with technology, and I think this is where down the road, artificial intelligence and the Alarm.com software can provide a lot of value in the back pocket of our service providers. This data can be used on for the customers' enhanced experience of smart homes. So we constantly want to evolve. But the big difference here too is that the Alarm.com position, when it comes to the data that our platform is collecting from all of our ecosystem partners, is that the data stays private. And I think that's a real competitive advantage as well, that our dealers can ultimately, tell the consumers out there in the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And the privacy and security, and it is a big deal. In fact, a major barrier for people buying a lot of these products to begin with. So Clint, do you have any comments here on the role of security with solar and how that works, especially in the relationship zone there?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, Jason mentioned it. There are a lot of bad actors in the solar space. It's a wild, wild west a little bit, and it's unregulated. You've got naive customers for the most part across the country. Solar's a new concept, especially in these emerging markets. And you've got, hungry salespeople that are maybe, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. A lot of them may be naive as to what they're doing and maybe not accurately offering, but it is the wild, wild west a little bit in the solar space today. And and that's obviously what, we're trying to do, is to standardize on some practices that, provide that trusted solution for consumers in the space. From a trust standpoint, I think the role of, Jason mentioned it with the utilities, utilities are trusted by their subscribers, as it relates to power. They're very trusted source of information, as well as the security player. So the security company of today has been trusted. The homeowners entrusted them to protect their family and the things that they value most in life. And so they think they can trust the opinion of a security player. And that's really where we think the magic can happen in the security space, is by a trusted source in the security company introducing a trusted offering and a trusted customer experience that they can get behind. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brendan, maybe we can get your feedback on this. Can you share a little bit about what region you're in and area you're serving, and maybe describe some of your customers and their perspective, right? Or if you're working directly with home builders and you're coming in to say, look, I can help support this next generation of services to help future-proof that home build. Love to learn a little bit more about what you guys are doing.
Sure. I'm sorry if I didn't announce that when I began. We're in the Mid-Atlantic here, just outside D.C., Northern Virginia, Maryland, D.C., and then we touch the fringes as well. We've based our entire company on the integrity and trust value proposition in serving our clients, because we feel if we can do the right thing there, not just by our colleagues and coworkers, but by our customers, we'll have an opportunity to sit at the table. And quite honestly, that's why Trinity decided to partner with Nomo and Alarm, because of a very consistent approach in how we're going to bring this solution to the market. At the end of the day, solar is not for every family, and it's not for every rooftop. Depending upon where the house is positioned, the amount of roof space that might be available, all plays into the calculation, if you will, as to whether or not this financial equation makes sense for a family or not. And we, as I mentioned earlier, take a very consultative approach and lay out the facts and serve as a consultant, so that when our customers make the decision that it is right for their home, they're usually telling their neighbors and friends about the overall experience, and we're not having to be knocking on doors. Our phones are ringing from the references that we're receiving. So we like our approach thus far, as we're continuing to enter the space, and we're going to remain consistent there with the help of Nomo and Alarm, that we're able to come in and help us get into this space and educate us as to how to go to market. And I could tell you that every builder discussion that we're having, they're attempting to understand how they play. Do they do it as an option up front while constructing the home, or do they do it as a trusted partner in the post-close space? And I could tell you this, which I found interesting, up against the 7% of penetration, we started offering a solar pre, which is literally a conduit from the attic down to the electrical panel. And we have a 50% take rate of that option. So if that is a forecast as to where this space might be going in the future, we're very excited about the opportunities there with the partnerships that we've established with the two companies that are here with me today.
Yeah, we see a lot of demand from consumers and business, and especially in the multifamily space as well. So I think there is a lot of growth coming, and we'll see how long it takes really for this very large transformation in energy to take place, where solar, is certainly a big piece of that. I want to focus our next few minutes on the services and then the home automation that can be incorporated into the home that enables energy savings to happen. And so let's start, Jason, I want to come to you first and talk a little bit about some of the services that we're seeing as a result of the fact that we've got these devices in the home, maybe the meter, and then you've got the utility all integrated in. So what in the end is the consumer end up getting in terms of new services coming?
Sure. So the first part to managing your energy really comes just from education, and utilities, for the most part, do a good job informing their customers about when the best time to use their energy is. For example, not during on-peak hours. Don't run your dryer and your AC and your clothing dryer all at the same time, and your oven. So behavior only gets you so far. So beyond that, it does require the hardware and software solutions like that Alarm.com offers. And one of the most common ways to use a smart home system to better manage your energy is obviously the thermostat. But it goes beyond just controlling your thermostat with an app. So you can consider controlling other devices, like if you have electric water heater, for example. So if you don't need to be heating your water heater during on-peak hours, then go ahead and shut them off. Specifically here in Phoenix, there's really no need, as most of them are in the garage anyways. But you can have a smart switch, for example, to make sure that your dryer doesn't turn on during on-peak hours. Have settings where your thermostat will turn off if your front door has been open for a certain amount of time. Then also think about a smart home system that is really tailored to your lifestyle, and specifically when you're home, how you use electricity, and also based on your utility rate, right? That's important. You want to sort of set it and forget it solution if you can. And then when you layer all that on top of your rooftop PV system, so that you really truly have one holistic, smarter home where your PV and battery are communicating to your smart home system in concert. That's really, I think, what the end goal is here. And EV charging is another area where managed charging could benefit the utility. So think about DR vents that shift the charging hours to off-peak hours. There'd certainly be customers that would participate in a program like that if there's some form of incentive. So I think I've heard Shawn say before, security is really the driver behind home automation, but the home energy management component is where I'm really excited to see it take off and truly benefit customers.
Yeah, and our data definitely shows that safety and security, and then energy savings, and also convenience are at the top, and they always have been since we've been looking at the market. So, Shawn, I want to give you the opportunity here. We're talking about really this vision of the whole home experience, and it's interesting if you think back 20 or 30 years. Back then, it was the entertainment companies and control companies maybe making the move into the whole home, and now we see all these devices added to the security system, extending applications and services, and now really the opportunity to become the whole home provider, leading with that security value proposition, and also energy right behind it. So maybe share with us a little bit about your focus on the unified experience and really bringing a very, very complex environment together for the consumer at home.
Yeah, happy to do so. So, from the Alarm.com perspective, we've always believed in a one app experience where we bring all these, data points together. And to Jason's comments earlier, there's a lot of data there. I mean, we haven't even touched on like whole home smart utility panels that are now being developed, but it does expand into, EV and battery, and we have the weather feed. Is it going to be sunny out or not? Is it going to be hot or cold that day? And does your home ultimately make the proper adjustments so that your home stays efficient and sustainable? So what used to be something that was only available for maybe the top 2%, know that with Alarm.com, it's a broad spectrum of services and devices, and these consumers can reap the benefits of us getting more aggressive and leveraging this private data for the benefit of the customers. So I think there's a lot of future automation and integrations that can be had, but in the energy services area alone, there's just so much potential there, and we're really excited about not only helping out individual consumers in their homes, but I see this expanding into the commercial space. Certainly, we're already engaged in a lot of conversations with production builders. Going back to some of the comments that Brendan had mentioned, these production builders want to compete against the resale market. So having a solar ready, an EV ready, a battery ready home, these are all, key differentiators, but it all comes down to this one app experience, bringing it all together, and then letting that data tell a story that the customer wants to go down. And it is very clear to us that energy efficiency is part of that story today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you bring in some really good points about the home builder market. If we extend that thinking even further, we know that builders right now are doing a lot of build to rent, right? Because we're going to have a problem with younger folks maybe being able to buy a house because of interest rates, or for whatever reason they're not buying a house, they want to live at home, and just the ability for homes to be available. So builders coming out with homes that they're building that they know they're never going to sell, right? So now it's an investment, and certainly they're going to be looking at what they're putting in the home in a different way than they might have when they just sell it right off, right? It become and safety, security, water leak detection, energy savings, and that point of differentiation to get a renter into that home, I think is going to become a pretty big deal. It is also, this promise of solar and what it can do is not just something consumers might want. There's going to be this need, right? Because of the issues with supply and electricity and being able to, the utilities, energy providers being able to manage that. So Clint, I want to get back over to you here and see if you can touch on, really what is this promise for the consumer? What is it for the utility? And then I also want to see if you can talk a little bit more about your easy button. And with that, can you re-explain that? I heard it a couple times. I want to make sure I and our audience understands exactly what's going on there.
Sure. I'll answer the easy button question first, if that's okay. So we have built up. We have a platform that's built up of thousands of solar sales professionals across the country that can meet a customer at the kitchen table or virtually in nearly any market where solar makes sense. And we're integrated with the best installers in the business. So if you think of that as kind of your network, and with technology, we're able to provide companies that want to participate in the upside of solar by adding solar to their product mix for their customer without having to sell it or install it or get their hands dirty, but participate pretty aggressively in the upside of the economics of solar. We're a perfect solution for that. So you can partner with Nomo, pass, through a series of, your onboarding with us. And what that entails, we obviously look at your use case, obviously, and where you meet the customer. But in the security space, for example, it's an easy introduction and lots of different ways you can get in front of the customer to pass that lead to Nomo, to get it to the right salesperson, to have the right conversation with guardrails around the offering. So protection around the price to the consumer, protection around the experience that they're going to have, a tracking of net promoter score at the sales rep experience and also at the install experience to ensure a safe and protected customer journey. Meanwhile, participating and sharing in that upside with the original source of that customer. So that's really the easy button, is partnering with us. You can participate in a variety of ways. Lead share is the easiest one, kind of a crawl, walk, run approach. We see security companies starting there and then maybe taking it to this next step of selling solar. They can do it on our platform and access installers across the country in nearly 40 markets, 40 states. And then, if some want to go on to install themselves down the road, that we see a few players kind of entering that space, we can help with that as well. So that's really the easy button. As far as the promise of savings, the goal from a value proposition standpoint is to create year one savings. So that's where we'll see real adoption and kind of mass adoption, is if we can provide an offering to the consumer that provides them year one savings. And when I say that, what I mean is what they're paying to have solar, maybe in a zero down value prop. So $0 down, here's what you would pay in a finance solar offering over the course. There's a variety of ways to buy solar, but cash or finance is the most popular, either in a loan or a lease or a PPA. But here's your monthly payment for solar with zero down versus what you're paying the utility. And if we can show year one savings and drive a predictable bill that customer can count on, savings was the main thing customers looking for. Predictability around those savings and consistency around their energy prices is the second thing. And then the third thing is peace of mind around backup storage. Think of storage. So power outages and brownouts and blackouts and all those things. I moved to California this last summer, and so started to become aware of what those things are. I was unaware of those before, but brownouts and blackouts happening, you have some peace of mind that will come by having storage in your home. So that's the goal is year one savings, predictable prices of their energy, and peace of mind.
Great. Jason, you have any comments on the promise of solar from the utility perspective and that perspective that you might share?
So I think one other value prop to utilities to consider when you think about an opportunity to offer solar to your customers, there could be some form of incentive where, in order to help better manage the grid, and we're talking about voltage fluctuations, really reducing peak, not having too much solar on the grid during non-peak times. Think about an opportunity where utilities control the inverter in order to reduce energy usage during the middle of the day when home loads are at their lowest, but solar generation is at its peak. So customers might be interested in participating in that, throttling back their solar if there's some form of incentive. So there's a two-way street. Same thing with battery. So if you think about an opportunity to control a customer's battery from the utility perspective, there might be real value there, again, for an incentive. But this just helps alleviate stress off the grid. It could be a win for the customer. It could also be a win for the utility.
That's great. Are there any other comments anybody might want to make on the promise of solar before we talk a little bit about how consumers are responding to these solutions?
I'll jump in and just simply say that I think it's really important for these two industries, both the security space and the solar space, to really understand what each of these sectors are trying to accomplish with smart home. And that's where Alarm.com and Nomo and our partnerships can help explain that a little bit further. There's a tremendous opportunity to make these industries better when they work together, and we're making huge strides right now to accomplish that. And we're really excited about what's to come.
Yeah, that's great. And certainly there is a lot of opportunity. I want to remind our audience, if you have any questions, go ahead and send them in. We have about 15 more minutes. I want to focus the remainder of the conversation really on the consumer and their response to some of these solutions. We've been, studying the space, doing lots of research work. We know that now 16% of households have a smart thermostat, which is a 3% adoption finally over last year and the 5 years prior, right? We were really stuck at that 11 to 13% adoption mark for thermostats. And so we finally saw that jump a little bit, but really, there's 84% of households who don't have one, right? So there's a long way to go. I would love to hear a little bit more about how that demand is showing up and how the consumer is responding to this. And so, Brendan, if we could start with you there, and then we'll go back and maybe hear from Shawn. Sorry.
Sure. I think the expectation of the home is an extension of the vehicle, and you look at the technology that is already incorporated in a car that you might purchase in the last 3 to 5 years. There's a control screen, and you can operate everything that the car has to offer. And yet in the construction and home space, that's not necessarily the case. So we see the customers wanting to have a connected ecosystem of technology, i.e., that's why Alarm is so important. And we focus on that to help that customer experience that goal. we spend a ton of time on making sure that we're doing that correctly and listening to the customer. So we survey our customers and we ask what's important of them. We measure NPS, and we want to make sure that the overall experience is just amazing. And I think in an attempt to retain customers and to continue to deliver value, making sure that we're the ones introducing to our customers the things that they might want to consider in their home is going to be really important. You look at some adoption rates, security has been stuck in the mud between 22 and 25%. Well, how do we grow that space? And I think it's with smart home / security, because I think the take rates and demand for smart home are greater than 23 to 25%. And if we're doing our jobs and properly explaining and consulting, I think we can help the industry grow.
Yeah, that's great. And, consumers absolutely expect technology in their lives and are looking for things to understand safety and security, understand what's going on in their environment when they're not there, being able to control things remotely. But the biggest part is it has to work, right? And that's been kind of some of the problem over many years, right? Is the products working, and they can work standalone just fine. But maybe when you start integrating 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 8, and trying to figure that out without a full system that's unified, you might run into some issues. So Shawn, if you would maybe share a little bit more again on this value of that unified experience and maybe Alarm.com's vision. I mean, it's you all have done so many different things to move into from a security provider to really a smart home solution provider, right? Where, perhaps in years to come, you could be offering 5G services and be the service provider of the home. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen in the decades to come.
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of Alarm.com. I mean, over my career, it's sometimes hard to predict some of the new products and integrations that we do. And what's fascinating is that it's always evolving. And specifically though, with energy services on a consumer perspective, I think one thing that's really important is addressing the pocketbook of the consumer. In the past, Alarm.com and still is all about security and safety, and that's the backbone of our success. That is a very difficult sector to be very good at. But as we expanded into other areas, it truly has been a natural progression of the smart home just getting smarter. And what we're seeing now, especially with the terms inflation and people trying to cut costs wherever they can, well, there's if you look at your utility bill, it continues to edge up. Every region, every state is going to be a little different, of course. But I live in Virginia, and that bill continues to increase year after year. And so I think consumers can look at their home and the evolution of smart home as perhaps an asset that can save you money. It's not just about an expense anymore. And so if the solar smarter home can save you money, I think that will grab the attention of consumers with what Alarm.com is doing and some of our partners. And then on top of that, going back to some of the tax incentives that Clint mentioned, that in itself is a huge tax incentive and also another cost saving. So I think a lot of this is about what's driving innovation is the financial incentives that we can extend to consumers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly security and safety plus save money and save the world maybe, right? Because you're doing good by storing your energy and giving it back to the grid. There's a lot of positive things here. And real quickly, does anybody else want to make any comments on the consumer? And then we'll just go, we've got our last set of questions. So I want to make sure we get to the end. But was there anybody else you wanted to touch on the consumer perspective? Unification systems. Okay, great. Let's go to our final question. I want to give you both just 2 minutes, right, to sum it up for us in what's going to be different now. If you can get your crystal ball out and tell me in 3 years, where do you see the market being dramatically different, or perhaps not? Perhaps it's slow and steady as we've seen it many years prior. And let's go ahead, Brendan, I'll start with you.
Sure. Well, I think with some of the federal government mandates on electric vehicles, they're going to become more and more popular than ever before. And the statistics would share that the majority of the charging is done at home. So to Shawn's point, energy management and looking at your ongoing expenses there, how do I do that in the most efficient and effective way? And how do I get that information real time so that I can manage my home in the most cost-effective way? So I think you'll have the continued expansion of the products and services that we're talking about today. It'll become part of the ecosystem that is considered smart home. And I think we, as integrators and players in the space, need to be there to be able to deliver and service these products so that customers can take advantage of the technologies that are available to them in their home.
Well, absolutely. You all play a real critical role in terms of getting these products into homes. And I love seeing the support that Alarm.com and other companies like JCI and Residio are really giving to the security dealers, right? You all need the support behind you to ensure that you all stay in business and that you grow and are able to serve your customers. Jason, you want to go ahead?
So I will, but I'm going to put on my utility hat for this question because I know Clint and Shawn are going to be able to speak much better to smart home and solar than I will. But just for this question, I think it'll be very interesting to see how hardware and software vendors work alongside utilities to be integrated into their larger, robust DERMS systems. For those not familiar, DERMS refers to a software platform utilities used to manage and control distributed energy resources on the grid. So think about solar and battery. That's going to be what's taking shape in the utility space over the next few years. It's going to be an important asset for utilities. And that's where this really just comes together when you think about the grid. So when you have an asset like a DERMS that can support frequency or voltage on the grid, shift load, provide emergency demand response. There's so many players in this space that from smart home to solar and EV charging and battery that I imagine they're going to want to be part of that discussion and solution.
Yeah, absolutely. You bring up some really good points. And actually, JT Thompson with Generac Grid Services at our Smart Energy Summit brought up the tens of thousands of assets that they have in certain markets, particularly Texas, that they are not connected, right? And so ERCOT is really missing out on that ability to pull in, and leverage those assets that could be controlled for, we've had a few issues here in Texas around, reliability. So great comments there. Clint, I'll go to you next.
You bet. Yeah, I think the next 3 years are going to be super exciting. I think to Brendan's point, there's a tsunami of EV demand coming that I don't think anyone quite understands how big, and I call it a tsunami because it's more than a wave. It will be it'll be substantial. For every 100 miles that an EV drives per day, it will double the amount of consumption of the average American. So, you think one EV, two EVs, what's the future of how many EVs are in your driveway? That's a ridiculous amount of demand. And I don't see any coal burning power plants being added to this country anytime soon. So where's that supply going to come from? And so it's going to compound the demand for solar, and you're going to see the solar players. My perspective from from talking to the security dealer here, the biggest home security and automation players in the space of the future will be the solar players. You're starting to see solar players add smart home. They're really a blended offering. It's one offering. It's not one with the other, and they're kind of complementary. It will be one. You've got major players in the solar space with this kind of wave of demand for solar, adding smart home. And if the security players either need to become a part of the solution. And my perspective is that if security players don't have an offensive solar strategy, they're going to be spending a lot of time creating defensive smart home strategies over the next few years. And so my encouragement would be to get a solar strategy, even if it is just to dabble and to try the easy button, if you will, with Nomo, to start doing something because the solar tsunami is coming because of the demand with EV and the interest in savings, as Shawn's mentioned, and everything else. So it's going to be exciting next few years. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Love those comments. Shawn, you've got the final word here on the future of solar and smart home next 3 years.
Well, I'm going to piggyback on what Clint just said. I think it comes down to solar awareness. So, we've done a very good job of creating awareness with our dealer network to address, some of the door knockers that are out there that are rolling in smart home into these solar contracts by simply educating the consumers on the solar offering. It really does open up these incredible conversations and insight in these pockets around the U.S. And, one thing that Alarm.com is very, very good at is listening to the voice of the dealer. So we have had a lot of success in rolling out our solar program to many, many strategic dealers. And we're starting to see even that tsunami within our dealer network that are interested in talking about solar. But the best part about this is that once the dealers are engaged in conversations with consumers, then the voice of the consumer is heard, which then drives the innovation to EV, to battery, all these tremendous opportunities that the data is showing us we have to do. So we're very excited about our relationships on the inverter side, with our relationship with Nomo, and the feedback that we're getting from dealers. But we do recognize that this is a dynamic market, and we're going to continue to change and evolve, and we're going to continue to listen. So we're very, very excited about energy services and the future of Alarm.com.
Well, there certainly is a lot of opportunity, especially with these intertwining products and ecosystems, and then the services that stem from them. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you for an awesome conversation and for your time. We very much appreciate you, and I hope to see you in person next time. But thank you for joining us today.